these recreational vehicles. It's their houses. This is where they live, and uh, those regulations haven't been developed among men because we haven't progressed so far. But across 2 solar systems or 3 solar systems, you might be able to imagine that I probably shouldn't slam anything big into an asteroid belt, for repercussions of perhaps a populated planet or something else. So a term like that is considered ISC. And it's an interstellar code, and what that means is that if you're an intelligent species and flying around out there, this is just stuff that you don't do. So, getting back onto the topics of regression and the topics of whether it's a people, a community, a town, a state, a planet, a solar system, a star, large craft or small craft, whether it's in the local area, the larger area, it's a responsibility. And among some species that can live for billions of years or trillions of years, and this sounds crazy, how can anything live a billion years? I mean, and it's as simple as a magnet. It's really as simple as a USB stick and coated inside of a magnet that never turns off. It just found a way to float around in space. Now it's intelligent talking. Everyone could live for 10 billion years. So some of the processes in space and some of the work and some of the things I've met as with the invitation to work with OIO is considerable. And I'm trying to keep this conversation specific to the problem of regression. And I'm not talking about psychology. You sit in a room and a psychologist tries to figure out what the hell happened, 10 years ago. This is more like a very active operation. They might have 10 or 15,000 craft involved with trying to resolve it. For example, you regress a craft. To regress the craft, we don't actually regress the craft. What we say is this is the position of the craft now. This is some assessment of where it was 10,000 years ago. We're going there. We're going to see how many people are on this craft. And when we do, we leave a few people behind if there's some people on it. And boom, we're going back further. And then boom, we're going back further. And we might be able to actually solve it. But solving the problems are sometimes more complex than they seem. Is it because of radio energy? Is it because of atomic energy? Is it because of some unknown energy they didn't know about? Was it a cosmic event? Was it a scientific problem? Was it a failure of a research project? And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So our work for planetary defense is, more than just defending the planet. It's also defending this planet against the activities of free men. Some free men in governments believe that they can have some ultimate weapon where, I can kill everybody on Earth, and next thing I'm going to do is make them comply with my way of life, or I'm going to kill all of you. That is a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous group of people. And when those groups of people or nations emerge, there's what's known as on some planets as they would call it an immune response. That means that these people come, for example, the Germans in World War II. The Germans started a problem where they would have almost exterminated planet Earth, and the same thing with the Russians. And when the immune response kicks in, these balls come out of the ground. Believe it or not, you can barely see them. They look like orbs. And when this stuff starts working, it is there for a reason. And some of the immune response encourages problems. Like, for example, Saddam Hussein goes in and ignites a bunch of oil wells, which had the potential of igniting oil reserves underground, overheating the planet for 2,000 or 3,000 years, and et cetera, et cetera. And when that immune response kicks in, people start doing things, and they don't know why. Nation A makes an attack, Nation B makes an attack, Nation C makes an attack, and when the problem is done, immune response is done. It's almost like the body fighting cancer, or the body fighting a disease, or a body fighting the flu. So some of the larger processes of Earth are not understood, and specifically by me, and some of these other things are not. So correlated across all the other issues, I just wanted to add this conversation of regression. And that's and really, someday I'm gonna we're gonna pick up another one of those craft. Those craft are made of metals in deep space, and some of them are refined and pure, and there's a lot of good stuff about it. But just like the U.S. Army might have 30,000 planes, that are all considered sophisticated. Eventually they walk away from some of them because they consider them old. And in space, among these species who might collect the debris between stars or in deep space or rocks and places like that, they build these huge, huge, huge craft. And they don't always occupy them. And where they don't always occupy them, it's important to establish, was it abandoned? Do they intend to go back to it? If we turn it on, are they going to fly here and figure out who the hell we are? Commandeering or trying to acquire these assets is a very, 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 very dangerous activity of our species. And our interest in taking planet Earth from men, there isn't one, you know. But someday, you know, the humans could be a species that competes in the universe. And my time model, use Michael with the government of Anarch, is a I shouldn't use the reference to the American flag, but you know, the American flag was assembled in such a way where they would build their nations by acquiring new lands or dividing their old lands, and then adding representations of the flag and then saying, look how strong and powerful we are. And as these flag models grow into space among the species, whether it's one nation that does it or 20 nations that do it, there is a time model that is probable. And when I say probable, I mean, yes, it could be a reality. However, for it to be a reality, it requires a specific direction, and it is a slow, long-term management of a species. And for me to follow the American flag, for example, you know, since it started a few hundred years ago, to, you know, be a flag of 50 stars to a flag of 50 stars. And what that means is 50 stars in our sky have planets around them, and the United States might have a settlement on a planet in each one of those regions. So following the flag model for me is from 50 stars to 50 stars. And this is a very dangerous timeline to work on, because in the process the humans could end up either consuming their planet to build craft, which is why we're teaching them to mine in space. They could end up hurting their solar system, and they could end up killing their own god. This means that if they kill planet Earth, they have killed their creator. And you know what I mean? And you probably don't know what I mean, but if you were a man and you flew to, you know, a star like Sirius, and you met someone and they asked you who your god was, you would point back at our star and be like, planet Earth, the oldest living thing we know of is Earth. And that's what made me, you know what I mean? So I'm out here exploring the universe because I was made capable because of that planet. And we do not want to be that species that says we do not have a god, because we could not control the activity of war, nations or terrorists, and etc., threatening the existence of our planet and our solar system. Also, that they can make a statement, you know what I mean, in a history book about how evil they are, or whatever their group was, or, you know, etc. And someday you'll understand that when a planet starts getting regressed, it becomes increasingly impossible to use the problems that destroy this planet, whether it's atomic weapons, atomic reactors, or etc. So one innovation at a time, we introduce and we shut down these problems, establish a natural model, and then, you know, I mean, we might not stick with them for, you know, a million years, but some of us might, you know, and that's just the way it is. So among those working with Anarch, you got to pick and choose your friends. You can run around this state and be friends with a bunch of men who you know have a lifespan of 80 years, or you can work with us, and, you know, we can do a lot more than another man can for you.